everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am the Rambling Film Lover, and I wanted to start this episode with a question. When it comes to casting an actor for a role of a real person, someone from history, someone who we have footage of and pictures of, is it important for the actor to look the part? I mean, really look the part. Like getting them as close to identical as possible. For me, I prefer it. Now, I will always be under the assumption that we're casting an actor so they act well, because some people will probably be like, well, maybe they look the part in every which way. Height, eye color, hair color, voice, maybe even mannerisms, but as an actor they can, figure that out. But at the price of the performance. Like they're a real dud. But for me, I want to have faith that whoever is auditioning for the role is a good actor and we don't have to worry about the performance. So for me, it is essential that the actor look very much like the person. Especially because as an audience member, we will go back and we will look up pictures and we will see, I feel like it will throw me off if the person looked so different. And so I wanted to talk about fantasy film casting, who we picture or who, I know you guys probably do this with your friends and whatnot or by yourself. You see an actor, you think of a character, even if they're like a comic book character, and you're like, I know there's an actor that looks exactly like this person or as close to this person as possible, and I would love for them to play the part. I mean, this is happening right now. Every time there's a Batman cast, everyone is always picking an actor with a very strong chin, a strong jaw. That is important. And even though Christian Bale did not really look like the Batman of the comic books, he, his performance was exceptional, and he's probably one of the best Batmans out there. Fun fact, my favorite is actually Michael Keaton, and he looks, I believe, the least like Batman, but he's my favorite because his performance is just killer. And even though, and Ben Affleck was actually chosen because, again, the build, the height, and that jawline. And I think he's actually maybe one of the, performance-wise, it's one of the more unimpressive ones. But we can throw in that the production and the writing, the whole package was never really going to work. So, there's many different reasons to be against picking someone that looks so much like the character. But for today's episode, I wanted to talk about Howard Hughes and casting an actor to play him. Now, we all know that Leonardo DiCaprio in 2004 played Howard Hughes in The Aviator. And it's such a wonderful film. I thought he did a good job. But from the very beginning, since I had already seen footage of Howard Hughes and I had seen pictures of him young to old, we have so much at our disposal, and we have a lot of information on this man. When I looked at Leonardo, all they really did was dye his hair darker because Howard Hughes had dark brown hair, whereas Leonardo DiCaprio is like a dirty blonde. So aside from that and an accent, that seems to be the only real transformation. I wasn't too impressed. I don't know what it is, why I'm such a stickler for it, but I do prefer, I'm not quite sure the word, but visually, I'm always blown away when someone is cast who looks like a real person. I'm trying to think of an example right now of someone who was cast who looks exactly like the real person they were playing. But for this episode, instead of Leonardo DiCaprio, I want to talk about someone I think would have been perfect for the role. Billy Campbell. I'm not sure if many of you may know this, but there was a really cool film that came out in the 90s called The Rocketeer, which was also an adaptation of a comic. It is one of my favorite films from my childhood. I was a kid when it came out and I loved it. And I thought it was great. And still to this day, I don't see anything wrong with it. But I heard, I wasn't aware of like the box office results when the film came out. Because, like, when films come out as a kid, I like it, you like it, and that's all that really matters. You don't look later to see if it did well or not. And my parents didn't really tell us, about movies bombing until I was like a teenager and actively interested in, that kind of stuff. But The Rocketeer didn't really do that well. And it had a great cast. It had Billy Campbell, it had Alan Arkin, Jennifer Connelly, and Timothy Dalton. Great action scenes. But yeah, it's actually underperformed. And I think they even had plans to do a sequel or maybe even a trilogy. And to this day, I really wish they had. The Phantom too. Remember The Phantom starring Billy Zane? Again, another comic book adaptation. And a little bit of trivia out there. The character of Batman was actually inspired by The Phantom. The Phantom is a comic that came out first ages ago. Afterwards, when they were creating Batman, they were inspired by The Phantom. And I remember when The Phantom came out with Billy Zane, I thought it was a great film. And again, it underperformed in the box office, whatever they really meant by that. But I didn't think it was bad. The acting was great. The action was awesome. It was a period flick. I really, really wished they would have, built a universe out of this one as well. Lost opportunity. Unless they come back to that, which I would love. But Billy Campbell starred in The Rocketeer. He was also in Bram Stoker's Dracula. And he's been acting steadily still. Just those are the ones where he really stood out. That I can really remember, that I feel like more people will know him for. And so I started looking him up again. And when I was pulling up the pictures, I thought he had such a striking resemblance to Howard Hughes. It was insane. And as for the voice, I think, when it comes to a voice, he didn't sound too different. And to be very honest, Howard Hughes, if you pull up some clips, some audio files of him, they're on YouTube, I think. He didn't exactly have a very strong Texan, he didn't really have a very strong accent. I feel like Leonardo's accent was maybe a bit much, like not exactly necessary, but I think, I could just be nitpicking a bit about that. So again, as for Billy Campbell sounding like Howard Hughes, that wouldn't be as important because I feel like everything else would have been on point. Take their heights, for instance. Howard Hughes was 6'4". Guess how tall Billy Campbell is? 6'4". And if you just skim through pictures of Billy, especially around the Rocketeer era, like the mid-90s, he looked exactly like him. Just put the suit on and you'll have this splitting image. Well, now here comes the problem with that, though. If we're talking about The Aviator, which was done 10 years after, like, The Rocketeer, Billy probably would have been too old to play, although I think still passable. So let me just make a general sort of statement. If they were going to make a film about Howard Hughes sometime in the mid to late 90s, that would have been the best time to cast Billy Campbell as Howard Hughes. I feel like he is his twin. I feel like he really would have put in a good performance. Billy Campbell is a very good actor. I really feel like it just would have been not more believable. This is a film, but it's just such a strong preference for me. Like, Tom Cruise took on the role in Valkyrie because he noticed he had a very strong resemblance to the character he played, who was, let me make sure I get the name right, Tom Cruise. He was playing Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg. And he does look like him. If you look up pictures of the real von Stauffenberg, yes, he looked like him. And so sometimes when I see films where a character is playing someone who really existed and they don't look like them, or they look really far, like just too different, because I'm very particular about the aesthetic, sometimes it will throw me off. Another example using Tom Cruise, this isn't a real person, but it's a character. But Jack Reacher is not someone similar to Tom Cruise. I think he's also like 6 foot something, blonde, like almost like Thor. So I feel like a lot of people, that was one of the concerns, I think, when Jack Reacher came out. They were like, Tom Cruise is not the person that I pictured to play this character. Again, another example is, the Keanu Reeves film. Oh God, I'm trying to remember it. As huge of a fan of Keanu Reeves as I am, I guess that's one of the less remembered films for me. Although I'm gonna say this, I love Bram Stoker's Dracula, but I don't think Keanu Reeves has a very strong performance there. I still love the guy. He's great with action films, and depending on the role, he can really kill it. But yes, when he played Constantine, and I looked up the character of Constantine from the comic, he looks nothing like him. He looks like Sting, like young Sting, you know? Blonde, English. It's very different, and I feel like that Constantine did well, but I still feel like it didn't do as well as people had hoped because of that. You know, and though Leonardo as Howard Hughes is not as big of a departure as the other examples, but I think for me, when there's so many, good options for actors out there. I kind of wish they would really maybe have taken their time. But again, for specifically The Aviator, this was Martin Scorsese. He had his vision. He had the actor already in his head. You whatever the director or the studio's thinking, they'll just go with it. It's not always what fans want. It's not always to be loyal to literature or to history. But I so wish it was. And so I just kind of wanted to ramble about that today. I think Billy Campbell is like the spitting image, the twin of Howard Hughes. And in my head, I am constantly trying to picture a film with him, and his life and all the way to old age. And I think it would have been a really great film. If there's any other examples, or if you guys have any other sort of like celebrity doppelgangers, please let me know. I've got a couple more examples coming up, and I'm not quite sure what to call these kind of episodes. I kind of wanted to call it fantasy film casting, but I think I'll just title them the name of the real person or the character from literature or whatnot, and then just talk about the actor that I think would be good for the role. But yeah, that's my kind of bugaboo. I am really anal when it comes to looking apart. Tell me what you thought of this video. Leave a comment below and stay tuned for more uploads. Bye guys.